Welcome to the Face to Face. I'm your host, Geneviève Carole-Lefebvre. Face to Face is a bilingual series of video recorded here at the Société francophone de Maillardville. We acknowledge la Société francophone de Maillardville operates on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded land of the Coquitlam. We thank the Coquitlam to continue to live on these lands and care for them along the waters and all what is above and below. Today, I am welcoming Michelle Slaney-Trovato. Michelle is a special needs mom. She is also the host of Living Your Legacy podcast, and she is a special education teacher. Welcome to the Face to Face, Michelle.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful you invited me.
Well, I've heard your story, and I couldn't resist. I think what you're doing is amazing, and I'm so happy we're going to be talking about it and sharing about it today.
Thank you.
So, you have a special needs child.
I do.
And I would like if you could start by sharing with us your story with how everything started with, because I think you went through adoption. Mm-hmm. So I'm giving you the mic, go for it.
Okay, well, my husband and I, shortly after we got married, decided that we wanted to have children, and that led us on a 4.5-year journey of all kinds of medical things and fertility stuff to find out that we fall into the category of undiagnosed infertility. Everything works, just nothing works together. We don't know why. And so we really wanted to be parents, and we decided that we would pursue adoption. So we did twice. Both our boys were born in the States. My oldest son was born in LA, and my youngest son was born in Philadelphia. And our oldest son was quite a surprise. Normally the process of adoption is very twisty-turny. It can take a long time. It was a very, very quick thing for us. We hadn't even actually finished doing all our paperwork here in Canada, and a lawyer in the States contacted our lawyer here to say that there was a birth mom who was 8.5 months pregnant. They needed to match her like yesterday, and would we go meet her? So I did something I've never ever done before or since. We flew to LA for the day. We went down, got the first flight in the morning. I went with nothing but my purse, and we went down and we met her, and she was lovely. And then we came back on the last flight of that day, telling everybody, well, that's it. We are going to have a baby. And
that's amazing.
So we did. He was born in 2009, and we brought him home, and he was, as far as we knew, perfect. But about 6 months of age, we started to realize that things for him weren't working out the way all the books say that developmental stuff should happen. That led us on another 4.5-year journey to find the depth and breadth of his challenges. They're big, they're all-encompassing, and they're lifelong. So he is, as of this recording, 19, and really kind of amazing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you have another child, right?
We do. In 2009, we adopted our second son. He is, as of this recording, 14, and super happy to be home alone right now.
Of course, right? Oh my God, that's so funny. What motivated you to become an advocate for young adults with disability, particularly in a Mathéo's class?
Well, I think all parents of kids with disabilities have to advocate for their child. There's always somewhere where we need more support, or we need more funding, or they need something more in school. And so right from the beginning, we start having to ask questions like, how can I best help my child? Mm-hmm. How can I best, get him the best services that are available? How can I access this or access that? So that's not unusual, but Mattheo is now 19, which in Canada makes him a legal adult.
Okay.
And so now we are moving from the childhood system to the adult system. And the sad reality that I've discovered is that the adult system is a less than system. There are less supports available. There are less services available. It's really on the person with the disabilities, their advocate and their guardians to actually go out and seek or create opportunities for themselves. And so I think it's really important to educate families and the general community on how we can all come together to provide more for people who struggle just to figure out how to get through the day.
Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing that it must be harder to find work, mm-hmm. Find friends.
Yep.
I mean, for you also, if you want to go on a date night, you have to find maybe another family to exchange services. How's that work?
It's hard, is the long and short of it. Because my son cannot stay home by himself independently. He could for a short period of time, but if we want to go out and have a leisurely dinner, I'm probably going to field about 57 phone calls. Where am I? What am I doing? When are we coming home? Why isn't he there? So it's not really relaxing. So we would have to pay for somebody to go, which when you're dealing with an adult is much more expensive than if, say, you were leaving your 2-year-old with the neighborhood kid down the street. We have to find people who are qualified in working with people with disabilities, and some of his disabilities are medical. So we need someone who has specialized training, which is not cheap. On average, about an extra $200 for us to just go out anywhere without him. And so we've had to get really creative in doing that. Otherwise, you just don't get to go out. So we have kind of our mommy network, and we have another family that we adore, and we essentially kid swap. So what that means is they will message us and say, hey, we've got something going on this date. Would you mind if our son came? Now, their son is about the same age as my son. They actually really like each other. They play together with Special Olympics basketball, like they're on the same team, so they know each other really well. So for them, this is like social time. They get to hang out and have fun. For us, we know our children are safe. We know that the other family knows what to do should something go sideways, and things go sideways, and they just don't freak out because, you know, things go sideways for us a lot. And so we then get to be able to go out and do things and know that our kids are safe, and we don't have to spend that extra money. It's families supporting other families. It's amazing.
Well, it's amazing to see that people are actually stepping up to do things like this. I think it can also depend on the level of disabilities. You're probably talking about someone that is a bit similar to your child. Or so I guess it like having the community, then you get to actually hang out all together, see how they interact. Because are they friends, those two? There we go. So then they actually have friendship, and you have also found some friendship with their parents.
Absolutely.
So it's amazing. I love it. So in today's context, what kind of support and assistance are young adults with disability receiving?
Not enough is the short answer. It's a complicated situation, but the long and short of it is government-funded programs are underfunded, they're understaffed, and they're overworked. So it's very difficult to find placements in programming that work for your child's needs because of that. There are very long wait lists, and so families are kind of left scratching our heads thinking, like, well, what do we do? And so it's challenging for sure to find those programs. If you have found them, or you've got someone who's shared with you some information to get in somewhere, like, that's amazing. But many of us are sort of wondering, what do we do?
So what happens if, let's say your son wants to find a job and go and explore the workforces?
Again, it's really hard.
Because you need to find an employer that wants to cater, and I don't know if it's the right word, or adapt to because every single person has different needs, right? So usually, what do you see that people have done that worked?
That's a really good question. My son has not been able to find employment, so I haven't really seen a lot of things that have worked. What I can say is that you're right, it's hard. Employers really worry about having people with disabilities working with them because there's accommodations that need to be made. And so there's some worry that the accommodations are going to be very expensive. There's also some worry with privacy laws that you can't really ask people about what they need for their accommodations. But in my son's case, he is functionally nonverbal, so he can't tell you. He can't advocate for himself as to what he needs. So it really kind of sets everybody up to fail, honestly. And it's hard. Now, the employers that often are willing to hire people with disabilities often have people with disabilities in their lives. So they've had exposure to what life is like for people with disabilities, and they have a deep understanding of people's abilities rather than what they can't do. But that's a small portion of the population. Or it's someone who's really brave and they're willing to say, I don't know much about this, but if you'll work with me, I'll work with you and we can figure it out.
So I can see how we just have to all work together and have an open heart. I think that's very important. I think it's, but I think people I want to do good things. I want to help people. So if I do, everybody wants to, but I can see how it can be different when it comes to business.
Yep.
And you have to be creative. Yeah, definitely a good thing to think about here. Now I want to know what are the other challenges you encountered seeking support for Mattheo as a young adult with disabilities?
Mattheo doesn't fit nicely into a box.
Okay.
So often there are supports for specific disabilities. So the autism folks have done a great job of uniting, of seeking support, of becoming vocal, but he doesn't have autism. So we can't be a part of that. He has a visual impairment, but he's not blind enough to qualify for full things connected to CNIB. So we really walk a gray area line. We're not disabled enough to qualify for some things, but we're not able enough to do other things, which leaves us in this nebulous place in the middle where we kind of don't get a lot.
Wow. So there's not any specific resources or program because you're in the gray zone, and I'm hearing that's your situation, but is it the situation for a lot of families also?
Yes, there are programs and things that are available through the government, and the government, I'm not bashing the government, they are doing their best to provide, but as we all know, the workforce is understaffed and people are struggling to find people, and of course you need people with very specified skills to be able to work with people with disabilities, because you've got medical things and cognitive things and spoken things. Like there's so many things to think about, communication that needs to be rolled all into those positions, and it's a very specialized person that would do it, and there's not many of them out there. So it's a bit of a challenge, and certainly it's a challenge because my son doesn't fit nicely into any one box. And yeah, a lot of families feel that way. I think even the families whose children do fit with a particular group or have a particular disability, they still find that there's challenges there for them too.
Do you have a word of advice for moms with children with disability, young adult like you or even younger?
I have lots.
Let's go, we're listening.
I think a couple of things. When we look for the ability in our child, we can find it. It's our job to advocate so other people see that too. So when I speak about my son, normally I don't list off all the things that are wrong with him. I will tell you things like, when he enters a room, you know he's there because he smiles with his whole body. And he is so kind and empathetic. He is keen to learn new things, loves to learn new things, particularly around using equipment. And once he knows, like, you do this and then you do that and then you do this, he's got it.
Okay.
Absolutely got it. And can school other people on how to do it or scold them if they're not doing it properly. He's really social. He loves to be around people and loves to participate in things. And so when I paint that picture, when you meet him, that's who you see.
Yes.
You don't see the sum total of everything that's wrong with him. You're looking for his smile. You're looking for the mischievous boy that I live with. You're looking for the young man who's kind and will hold the door open for you. Or I got pictures of him helping a young lady who is more visually impaired than him, and he took her hand to guide her into an event, and he made sure she didn't trip up over anything or run into anything. That's my son. Now, he has some challenges, and there are some things he finds really hard to do, but when you see him in that light, that's the light that you start looking at him, right? That's because I set it up. That's what I told you to look for. Other things I would think about is to be creative. When we get creative, it's amazing what we can create or bring to life for our children. So Mattheo finished his school this year in June, and as of right now, he does not have a job and he does not have a program to go to. So we have decided that we're going to do something with him. We're going to employ him, and we've launched a new little business, and he is actively hands-on in it, doing it, part of it. We are going to teach him all the things. So for local families, we will actually go and deliver, and by we I mean I'll drive, but he's coming to your door to deliver things. We're going to teach him how to use the post office. And again, I spoke to a lady at the post office that I forged a relationship with, told her what we were doing, and I asked her, would you be willing to work with me so that I can teach my son how to do this, and eventually I won't even come in? She said, I will hold up everybody till he gets done what he needs to do. And I thought, you're my people. I like you, and I'm so excited to introduce him and to start this process. And again, it just was about being creative. It's about being creative with childcare. Just like I said, we're talking to another mom, our sons like each other, we got creative. So we can problem solve for ourselves and for our children so much more and easier than if we're waiting for other people who don't know us and don't know our children to do it for us. Mm-hmm. So again, so get creative. Talk about your child in a light you want your child to be seen in, and don't give up hope. Mm-hmm. There's always possibility somewhere. I ask myself that all the time. What is possible here? The word impossible we hear a lot as special needs parents. It's impossible. Your child will never do this or not do that, or is always going to struggle here. We hear that a lot. But when we start asking what is possible, that opens the door to opportunity, to creative problem solving, for people to put on their thinking hats and go, gosh, what is possible? What could we do if we got creative and got together on this? And when we do that, amazing things happen.
Amazing. Have you ever talked with the school board or been in contact with them talking about all this?
Funny you should ask, because yes, I actually have been reaching out to the Coquitlam School District to talk about how we can transition plan for our kids with disabilities. How can we better support them? So when kids come into the school district puts their arm around them and says, we got you. And they help the parents to, work their way through all this and transition their children in and transition them from elementary to middle, from middle to high school. And right now it kind of ends there. Mm-hmm. So it's really up to the parents. But I'm hoping that we're going to be able to create some amazing systems to pass our kids from the school system into other arms, which will help parents to be able to navigate with and for their children. And I say with because I bring Mattheo along with me for just about everything. When we set up his bank account, he came with me. I didn't just do it for him. And when we start talking about this transition process, I bring him into all these things too, because I want people to see who I'm talking about. Who is this young man?
Yeah, of course.
How does he navigate in the world? And I think it's so important for families to have that same experience. So I'm really excited that the school district is very interested and they're keen, and I have a meeting on the books next week to sort of talk about where do we start, what can we do, what would this look like, how can we work to transition our children from the school system into the waiting arms of some people who will help to take care of them and their families as adults.
That's amazing, because school time, it's actually a very short amount of time in our life. Mm-hmm. And after, what do we do? What's happening with those young adults that will be adult, and that would also get older. Mm-hmm. And we know with times, services has changed. Like format, yep. Style has changed, and it's always going to evolve, but sometimes it was more than now or less than now. Yep. So I'm happy to hear that they actually wanted to meet with you. And then I guess there's a follow-up to be.
Yep, this is just the start.
This is just the start.
Yep, this is the beginning of the conversation, and they're excited, I'm excited, and again, when we put people together who see this as an opportunity rather than a challenge, amazing things can happen. So I can't wait to see what's gonna come out of all these conversations.
That is so great. Mm-hmm. So, okay, my last question.
Yes.
Probably almost last, because there's always another one after.
Okay.
So how can community offers more inclusive support for family with children facing disability or disabilities?
How can the community do that? That's a really good question. I think...
I mean, do we talk about the cities, the community centers? Have you...
I actually feel like a lot of places really actually do a fairly good job. You know, community centers, they've certainly been very open, and I think that's probably the best advice. Be open. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I love it when people ask me questions. How can they support, or what can we do, or is this going to work? Would it be better if we tried that? Those are great conversation openers that allow me to walk through that door and partner with you to be able to achieve something better for not just my kid, but every other kid who comes through the door, every other family, and not just families with children with disabilities, new immigrants when they're struggling with English. It's, you know, they struggle. They've got challenges as well. Or, you know, senior citizens who maybe are a little bit nervous about things, or people who have the early onset dementia or Alzheimer's. Like, there's so many other people in our community that openness benefits. So that's the first thing I would say, is to be open. And being nervous or scared is okay. Trust me, I have been nervous and scared as a parent. He didn't come with a handbook. No child does. And in his case, his handbook's probably this thick. Like, there's so many extra things you need to know.
Yes.
And so it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to have reservations. It's okay to think, honestly, I don't know what to do here. That's okay. Because if we talk about it, I bet we could come up with something, or we could try a few things. Like, we'll try this. Did that work? Maybe. If it didn't, we'll try something else. Did that work? Yay. And sometimes, again, there's so much magic when people put their creativity together. The synergy in that is extraordinary. And people can come up with like a third, better, best option that neither one of us thought of when we first met. But through the process of chatting about it, we figured out, oh yeah, hey, what if we tried this? So it's more about being open and being willing to be in partnership with. And often we find that as a family, when we go out, we're out and about in the community. My son loves to eat, and eat out is one of his favorite things to do. And so we often just sort of front load people in the restaurant. Our son can't read the menu. He's going to look around and he'll be pointing at somebody's plate. Could you tell us what's on that plate? Because that's what he'd like to have. And they're like, okay, because we just are so nonplussed about the whole thing. This is just how we communicate. And when we set the tone, we find people follow. Really quickly, they're like, okay, we got this. And so being open, being willing to be a part of it, to be a part of the conversation, being willing to experiment a little. It's kind of like the grand science experiment of life. Experiment a little with us. And then just being open, having an open heart and an open mind, it removes so many barriers for so many people.
That's awesome. Michelle, Mattheo is here with your husband.
Yes,
do you think we
is.
can get them to come and say a little hi to us?
I'm pretty sure we could. Would you like to come?
Oh,
Go behind you, yes.
is it good? How are you doing?
Say hi.
Okay. Hi, Mattheo. How you doing?
Good.
I see you have a really nice shirt, and I see you are actually on that shirt with a Mustang. Is that your Mustang?
Yeah, that's your car.
Yeah. Wow. And you're looking all great on that shot there, on that photo. We're all dressed up. Is it prom?
Yes, he was going to his prom that day. That's his grad picture.
Oh, that's so fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming and say a little hi, Mattheo. Thumbs up. So to go back to the t-shirt, is this part of Matteo's business?
Yes, it is. So once we launched our podcast, what we launched it about was creating a life and a legacy for our son. And ultimately what we want to do is buy him a house where he can live semi-independently. I overheard a conversation between him and his best friend, and they were talking about how awesome it would be to live together as grown-ups.
Okay.
And I was so inspired by that because I thought, how totally normal is this conversation? When I first moved out, I moved out with my friends and all the awesomeness and awfulness that was, right? And he wants to have that too. And we thought, well, let's see how we can create it for him. And so we wanted him to be employed. I don't want him sitting at home all day playing video games. And because we've had some struggles in this area, we thought, well, why don't we do it? So that's right, you like basketball. So we've been working, hey? We've been working at home and making our shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've launched an apparel and product company under the title of Living Your Legacy, where we are going to be making t-shirts like Matteo's and mine. And we're going to also be making, thank you, we're going to be making hats and mugs and other products as we go through. We've bought all the equipment, and Mr. Mattheo is the guy who actually operates the equipment to make these things.
Amazing, Mattheo. Do you like it? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes?
It's pretty fun, huh?
That's so great. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for joining me today on the Face-to-Face, and good luck, Mattheo, on your business. I think it's amazing what you're doing, and I'm sure you'll be inspiring a lot of amazing people out there. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for joining us today. From the Tricitiest Community Television, the Société Francophone de Maillardville, and myself, Geneviève. See you next time.